And with us, I think we've been gone for 2 weeks now, and it's great to be back. With me is Squibble
Hello.
and Tian.
Hey, how's it going?
So I think, Tian, you wanted to talk a little bit about what you did over break regarding Melee. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Uh, Winter break was really fun. So currently I'm living in New Hampshire, but home for me is New Jersey, and New Jersey is like surprisingly a really active scene with a lot of people looking to get better. So I ended up doing a lot of writing for my chemistry PhD, and I finally got like an assignment out yesterday. It's pretty big, but I got to play a lot of friendlies with. I just like hit up a bunch of New Jersey Smashers. RioBeat ended up responding, and he hosted a fest at his place. And we just did like 3-man friendlies with a lot of attention to detail. So one thing I really liked about our previous, I guess we called it a study session. It really did feel like that. We would analyze like games and situations after we'd finish, and we wouldn't just say things in terms of like whether this is good or bad. We would really scrutinize on like the details as to like whether this was avoidable, and like what each of us like felt was working for us and what wasn't. So that was more or less like my Melee. I also had some friends over for what we called the Winter Annual Productivity Summit, which is just a lot of like video games. So I got to play with like Papa John and a lot of New York Smashers like Fraser, Kenny. It was a lot of fun. I get to get like a ton of doubles in. Yeah, so I had a really awesome winter break. Buckled down, got a lot of writing done, played a bit of Melee. How about you guys?
Yeah, winter break is a great time for me personally because it means that I don't have to think about school and I can just think about Melee. So
Yes.
that's what I did. And like I think I watched more videos in the past 2 weeks of Melee than I have in like the last 3 months. And it's just like you can. It was so nice to just be able to think about Melee. Like it's not homework because it's fun, right? Like you're doing it because you want to, but it's really good. I went to a couple of tournaments. So New Game Plus shut down, as we all know. And just came back recently. But for the last 2 weeks, I think that there was a big effort to get people out to the less frequented locals, like make money off Melee. There were more cars going there. Super Dragon in Rhode Island got a little more exposure over the week because the Bostonians who needed their Melee fix were like, we're gonna go there.
Yeah, you guys
so
are beans.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shoutouts to Makari and
Shoutouts
Lemon.
to-
I don't know if Lemon drove people too.
Oh yeah, Lemon always drives people. He is
Yeah.
the force
The
behind.
New England cars.
Yes,
They're
the
the
Boston
true heroes.
Yes.
He's the caravan leader.
Absolutely. And so I got to see a lot of people that I don't usually get to see, like the elusive Kevin M. and a lot of New Hampshire people. So that was really
Nice.
good. Yeah, and it's great because you can hit people up and they'll be like, just post in the chat, and then a caravan will head on over to you.
Yeah. How about you, Theo? I think Theo traveled to Canada. Is that the case?
Yeah. I did zero Melee related stuff for the past 2 weeks, which was really nice because I got to think about the game a lot and rest my hands. So overall, it was a good reset period. So I got to go back to like. Now it's like I'm playing a whole new game again, and it was forced to happen. It wasn't like I chose it, so it wasn't like I was burnt out when I quit. So now I'm like super excited to play as opposed to like trying to desperately hang on. So I think it was good to take a 2 week break, but it didn't really make me better. It just helped my mindset.
So I think for some players, and particularly some players of certain characters, taking breaks and just not playing Melee for 2 weeks is really good for them because they lose their bad habits a little bit. Because when you take a break, you're not doing the same thing over and over, and you can take it with fresh eyes. And I think that's especially true for floaty players. Like if you play Sheik or Peach or some other characters that don't require you to practice every single day. It's really good to come back and just be like, oh, I can just beat this person now that I'm having trouble with. And sometimes you can get that epiphany. But I think with Fox, you don't really get that. It's more like
Yeah.
you just kind of, oh, I can't do anything anymore.
Well, my tech got a little bit worse, but after playing for like 2 days, I think I'm back to where I was, so it didn't take that long to restore it. And I thought about a lot of like really weird micro situations that I would have been too lazy to think about if I could just play Melee, because that's way more fun. Like Peach jab down smash is like the most hella fake thing in the game. It's like minus 20 between jab and down smash. And I would have never did the math if I was playing Melee, because that's boring. But since I couldn't play Melee, I did math instead and learned something.
But then you get outplayed by jab up air.
Yeah.
But no one knows that.
That's true.
But yeah, so it's a new year with a new game plus, but the same winner, bookending 2015 and 2016.
Congrats, Mafia.
Yeah, congrats to Mafia. Took it twice in a row. I think it's over Pedro in second place both times. So good stuff to both of them. Good stuff to both players, and especially Mafia. But I think the really unexpected result yesterday was Infinite Numbers taking third place.
Third?
Third place. No, fourth.
I thought he got fourth.
Fourth? Third
I don't
or fourth?
know. You have the bracket, don't you?
Oh yeah, I'll pull up the bracket. I might be lying. No, third place.
Okay,
To beat
wow.
Mr. Lemon for fourth, but Mr. Lemon showing up, by the way, taking names.
Well, he lost super early and then went like on a hella run.
He placed every Ices yesterday. It was so funny, and it's funny because Doc Ices is Doc players don't like it. It's not a secret, and he just went through the bracket. I think he played all three of the Ices in attendance yesterday. But
so that would be like what BBB. Let me think. Like BBB, Numbers, and who was the other one?
Q-Puff.
Q-Bub was there too.
So
Wow.
funny thing, of the top 8 players at New Game Plus yesterday, there were 3 Peaches and 2 Ice Climbers with another Ices in 9th.
That's outrageous.
Yeah, welcome to New England, folks.
So I helped make the top 8 cool because I was playing Fox. Just thought I'd throw it out there.
Yeah, there was a random Fox and a random Falcon there.
Oh man, I got demoted to random Fox.
Yeah.
So what was the breakdown? I actually haven't seen the bracket.
So it's 1 Mafia, 2 Claps, 3 Numbers, 4 Lemon. Lemon played out of his mind yesterday, by the way. I played against Lemon, and he was on a mission. And BBB and RL at 5th. And that's actually the really surprising thing to me, is that Numbers beat RL to take his place.
Crazy.
Yeah. And so I've always thought that of the relevant characters, relevant being cut off at wherever you choose, Ices versus Peach is the worst matchup in the game. And to be able to beat a player like RL, and Numbers is like been rising pretty meteorically, I think is the word. Just out of nowhere, he came and started taking names and shot to the #1 of New Hampshire Power Rank. And I was a little skeptical at first. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, I played this guy 6 months ago, and he was a Fox, and he was, not the greatest.
You are a Peach player.
Yeah, it's true. And and I'm biased because when I play Ices, it's like, oh, Ices suck. But apparently they don't suck enough to not lose to a good Peach. So good stuff to him.
Yeah. I was a little skeptical too, but after hearing some accounts of like how much he's been playing recently, I think pretty much since I stopped playing as much in New Hampshire, I think Numbers has been like attending locals and just playing all the time. So
Hasn't Numbers beat you the last time you played, Jim?
So I think we're around like, I've dropped a few sets to him before. I think we're probably 3-3 overall. And it's
Definitely
generally
a losing record in the last few months. And then
Yeah.
so Howard's our savior.
Yes, it feels good. Well, so one of the Peaches has got to do it, right?
Yeah, the New Hampshire tournaments are never really too easy. They're actually quite hard to win. Like you'll have guys like Tardox, Kalvar, Infinite Numbers, and it's not really advertised really strongly when they show up. But yeah, I thought that they might only be good at the moment at beating other people within the region because it's so easy to just study the people who are threats to you. So the fact that the fact that Numbers is doing well like in Boston and in the greater area, I think that's very telling, and it's very indicative of possible national or majors success if he chooses to travel.
Yeah, I think so too. When I play with Numbers, the first thing I realize when playing him is that this guy I think the word is unflappable, because when I put it's really easy to get pressured in certain situations and just lose your cool. But he learns, and he doesn't let silly things get to him, and he learns super fast. Like if something works on him, I feel like it's got an expiration date. So yeah, good stuff to him. I think he's only going to continue to get better, and it's going to be really, really good to see.
Yeah, I've played him a few times recently, and I think he was my main Ices practice partner for New Hampshire tournaments. But I think on the whole he's really adaptive, and he'll have a really clear cut he knows really well what he wants to look for in any given situation. So and I know he like knows the value of a wobble. Whether or not he chooses to wobble in friendlies, like we just understand if he gets a grab, it's like in tournament this would be a stock. So it's useful to think about like like what would be the worst possible outcome. Like even if I'm getting off easy here, what should happen? And one thing I realized about Ice Climbers is that like there are two things, and they're things that like I think I realized watching videos and sort of theory crafting with Ryobeat over break. One thing is that people don't crouch cancel enough against Ice Climbers, especially when we play like floaties, because like the pernicious fear for crouch canceling against Ice Climbers is that you'll crouch cancel, double down smash, and die at like 40 as Fox or something. But when you're playing
like run up and grab you, right?
Yeah. So the thing is like wave dash forward tilt or wave dash forward jab is a relatively simple setup, and people don't really respect it. So like you get caught like in the time where you're trying to like jump or something, you get caught out of jump squat, and then like out of like the mental stun, you get grabbed and you get wobbled. But if you're holding down actually, and they elect not to like just wave dash in and grab, you get to like just take their hits and like punish them. And if you see that they're not going for the jabs, you can just still like mash it down smash or mash something else. This is especially good for characters like Peach, I think, even though down smash is really bad, if you like register that they're wave dashing towards you, you can definitely like just not be as afraid as we currently are to crouch. So that was one thing I realized like about Ice Climbers. It's that like people don't really crouch cancel enough. I'm not sure if it's a great idea to do it, but like I feel like people pretty much Ice Climbers players I think don't expect people to do it yet. So I want to see where that that line of thinking takes us. The second thing I realized was that if the biggest punish that Ice Climbers are going to get against you is your stock, then using your double jump a little bit more liberally than you would otherwise is somewhat valuable. Like if you can double jump to bait out like Ice Climbers holding shield for a little bit longer, and you have a read that they're just going to keep on holding shield until like you do something else, you can just use the positioning to threaten them with aerials and not actually commit to hitting them. So I've said repeatedly that like I feel like whiffing against Ice Climbers is like the single worst thing you can do, and that they're probably one of the best characters in the game for punishing whiffs. So just like if you can force them to hold shield and like just damage the shield, even if it's at like the cost of your double jump, it could be worth it. So I've had some thoughts about that, and yeah, I think Ice Climbers are like everyone says they're bad, but like show me how to beat them. They're not easy to beat.
So I want to talk about what you said a little bit earlier about crouch canceling against Ices.
Yeah.
And I think that I really agree with that. I don't think people crouch cancel enough ever with any character except for
Drug Fox.
Yeah, because crouch
except for like Samus, right?
Yeah, unless you're like a character that is known for crouch canceling.
Right.
Like Peach players and Samus players probably crouch cancel enough, but I don't think Fox players, Falco players, or anyone else crouch cancels nearly enough because, like, the Ices player is just aware just as much as you are, if they're good, of how afraid you are of the grab. So if they're just gonna run at you, they're probably not gonna run at you with just dash grab the first time. Like some players will, right? I think that some of our Ices are actually famous for doing that, but I think that others don't, right? Like a lot of them do a really good job of mixing it up. And if you have the read, that they're not going to grab, crouch cancel beats everything. It's a little like Sheik, right? Crouch cancel beats basically everything up to like 30-something%, right? I don't think Ices has a move that knocks the heavier characters down really. And that's true for Peach too. Like Peaches aren't gonna just run up and down smash you most of the time. Like it takes a really hard read.
I don't know. I think you were doing that to me like 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we do occasionally to keep you honest, but it's really good. Like, sometimes I run up to a Fox player, and they're just holding down a dash attack, and I eat a 70% combo for it. And it's really strong to crouch cancel against players that know you're scared of hitting down. Because think about it from a basic psychological perspective. If I know you're not going to be holding down, or if I think you're not going to be holding down, I'm going to do the thing that it doesn't get punished by holding down. That gets punished by holding down, so just do that. It's like
So if it's like rock paper scissors, like
exactly,
like just blatantly or guess like wave dash forward jab or wave dash forward grab. Well, okay, wave dash forward jab grab is sort of like rock, It's sort of like the surface level 1 like thing you test people with. But because people are so afraid of that, I think at the moment people aren't even trying to put out scissors. They're just avoiding rock paper scissors altogether, just like trying to play a different game. So I think understanding like how the mix-ups work and like like the different angles of attack they can have for like getting their setups is extremely important. But like all things being considered, I feel like ice climbers are still like badly underappreciated, and also Samus. So going by like one other thing I'd like to talk about is actually like melee Enemy top 100. So I think like where specific players fall, except for a few players, it's sort of like subjective, and there's obviously like some like a good amount of thought put into it, but I think it's very suggestive that that there are 3 Samus players in melee Enemy top 100 for the top 30, and that's Plop, Hugs, and
Oh, we're counting Plop.
Puck
Okay.
isn't really a Samus player, though.
I would say well he beat Levin with Samus, and I think
If he
that's
had a
really
Samus,
important.
it would be in the top 30. If he did
Yeah.
play Samus, he would
Yeah,
be
his
top 30
Samus is still
Samus.
probably the best Samus in the world.
Yeah.
Plop, Hugs, and Duck, right? And like when people talk about Samus, like she's not really even considered in the top 8. And Samus players have like the reverse problem of having to like justify why their character is good, rather than like saying like my character is bad. Right? Samus players always tell you Samus is good.
Samus
You're just
players
like
have great
underestimating.
mindsets.
Well, Kira thinks that Samus is the most underrated character in the game in his SSBM tutorial videos.
Wait,
Hmm.
really?
Yeah, and
didn't
I
see
agree with
this.
that,
When did he
'cause
say that?
Samus probably has like one of the best matchups against Fox in the game of most characters.
Yeah, because like you can't bloop Samus.
You have to play Samus's game,
Mm-hmm.
and Samus is good at her game. It's not like
I
some
think Fox
characters.
is better.
Hey, that is a reasonable thing to think, that Fox is
Yeah.
still the best character in the game.
Yeah.
But
I think
Samus has
Samus-
a good matchup again, a
I mean,
reasonable
by
matchup.
good, I mean it's like 6'4" at best.
I think Samus struggles a lot like with platforms against Fox. Like if you're on top platform against Fox, as Fox, if you're on top platform, I really don't see how like Samus could like equitably force you off of top platform. And Duck, like I've asked him about that before, but like he seems to think it's not a big deal. But like when I play Samus, it feels like kind of a big deal that I can't really catch runaway Foxes.
I think Samus Fox is about as good as like Peach Fox. 'Cause
Yeah. You're super
Samus
slow.
has good defensive options, but she has like no punish game. I mean, for a Fox punish game, it's like pretty bad for spacey punishing.
But it goes both ways too, right? Like
Yeah, but
Samus
Fox-
doesn't get combo fooded the way Peach does.
Yeah, but you win neutral like super hard. It's
Not
like
always.
you
Like
neutral,
Samus has more wiggle room than almost any other defensive character. Like I always think of Samus as like a character who has like multiple levels of shields. Like if this were Street Fighter, she would have like Hadouken to keep you away from afar, and then once
Yeah.
you got close, she would have like a Shiryu or DP option. And if you like still like if you get like beyond that range, then you have to fight against her normals. So like at any given range, like she just has tools to keep you out. She has like missiles from afar, tilts to keep you away, smashes to keep you away, and then finally like jabs to anti-air you. And if you get past that, you can still up you out of shield. So she has like a ton of options, and I think a lot of them are fast enough to like go under human reaction time. You can't really react to what she's gonna choose. You just have to like threaten her and guess a lot of the time.
It's really strange. New England doesn't have any Samus players that really
Barbie.
frequently. Yeah, Barbie disappeared from the world of Smash.
He's playing in Connecticut. I think he's like the 3rd best player on the PR or something.
Okay, I didn't see him on the Connecticut PR.
Maybe like I think he's somewhere on there, but
Okay, so
he's like the only Samus player in New England.
and I haven't seen him in a year and a half.
Yeah.
And obviously Boston is not all of New England, but
It basically is.
We don't see him at Mass Madness,
we don't see him at
unfortunately.
Mass Madness. I went to HOG. I did not see him there.
He sometimes attends Hogs, but
Yeah.
regardless, like the point stands. We don't really have like the next best Samus might be like either Sing or Swiss
Yeah.
Miss.
And Sing
say.
has been kind of AFK from Melee as well. So I don't know what it is, because I feel like when I watch Samus play, she plays a lot more like a traditional fighter or a Street Fighter character,
Mhm.
because she has her footsies, her wave dash forward, back, F tilts,
Yeah.
and she has her fireball and she has her Hadouken, right? And so the thing that really sets Samus apart from the other low tiers is that you can't just X character her. Like you can't just Fox
Kinda
her.
can, but it's not quite as bad.
You can't just Peach her, right? I think that because like all of the shield pressure that you spend so many hours practicing just doesn't work against Samus because they up you out of shield, and then you need to play rock paper scissors, and that's like just the fact that you've never seen a combo video or a montage where people just go off on Samus, right? Like that just doesn't happen.
No, wait. We got.
No.
To be fair, there are some Captain Falcon combo videos that are just like quadruple
Falcon's
knee
pretty
across
cool.
the stage.
Jigglypuff can like rest or F tilt. That's kind of cool.
Oh god, yeah,
What?
like
I've never
entering
seen that.
MLG.
There
was one set.
This is like Daryl or something. It's a great set.
Okay.
So during MLG, I was watching Dudusai playing against I think PL, I think or it was like he was playing a Japanese Samus player who was really good, and then during that set, I think Sai got off 3 rests out of dash attack. So like I think the player just didn't respect that enough. But you know, Sai just like exploded out into rest, and I was like, wait, that's legit. The first one was like, you know, a little unclear, but like after the second one, it was just like really clear that Sai was going for them really deliberately. So I feel like, for example, Jigglypuff can blow up Samus for like doing anything foolish. But yeah, you're right. Like she's pretty hard to combo. It's pretty easy to get like 1 or 2 hit links against her, but that's generally not enough to kill her.
And she does the same thing back, right? She gets 1 or 2 hit links against you, and so
I actually think she has like a Peach-like punish game where she can just keep you juggled in the air like for a long time. Like if you play against YCZ or someone, like it's a pain to land, and you feel like he's always keeping his positioning like fluid. So I actually really don't like playing against Samus is pretty hard. Like you have to really leverage the strength of Sheik's grab, and for like a floaty Ditto like Peach or something, I feel like you can win more interactions, but sometimes like you can just like feel kind of helpless and trying to come down against Samus of all characters. She's pretty good.
But with that, I think that Sheik plays a lot like a fighting game character as well, though.
Yeah.
She also has like all the tilts. I mean, boost grab and dash attack are kind of like random things that don't exist in other fighting games, and next is an anime game because you just teleport across the screen. But she's like pretty fundamental based because like you just walk around and that's good. Where with every other character, it's kind of
She's like Sagat, right? Strong normals, good projectiles, like pretty good
but
health.
no DP, no
And-
DP.
True. No, oh, she has like Nair out of shield. I guess that counts.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
Shield
invincible.
is like
Though.
one of the best out of shield options in the game.
It is very good, but it's not literally invincible.
Yeah, but you
So-
don't really need that. Like Fox's Shine is invincible, but it doesn't. That's not what makes Fox. That's not what makes Shine broken. Fox is just broken because he's fast and comes out on frame 1.
Yeah, but people just spam stuff on Sheik, right? Like once you're in on
Yeah.
Sheik, you are in.
Not really. Nair on
Not
Shield
really.
is like a really good tool. Just so few people have perfected it. If you watch Plup, he's very good at it. Mewtwo can kind of spam shield grab and just like whatever, it'll work and I'll win at some point. But Plop has like super crispy nairs out of shield.
Also, Dazwa.
That's like-
That's one thing that I really noticed when I played against Dazwa in main. Like, it's the fact that he would really know when he was exiting hit stun or shield stun, and then just like nair out of shield instantly. So it becomes sort of like a mini game to like try to follow up on something versus like, you know, just spamming like fair repeatedly or something. So yeah, you can take nairing out of shield really far for a lot of characters, and I think it's not until you start getting up to like Foxes and Falcons who have like absurdly good shine pressure that you know, like really consistent repeatable shine pressure that it stops becoming as viable. But even then, like people are still gonna like miss inputs by like a couple of frames. I think like you're supposed to nair out of shield after shine against both characters, but
It's
Falco
It's-
really a mix up. There's no one thing you can do.
Because like high
Yeah.
aerials are unsafe to nair out of shield, but if they do low aerial, then you have to nair after the shine. And like everyone can double shine now, so you gotta guess if they're going to double shine or not. And
Yeah.
So it's like a bit tricky.
So in large part, I've built my game around Peach's out of shield game because that's something that could sort of compartmentalize and think in like concrete moments. It's hard to think of where I should exactly space to be, you know, X or Y, but in shield pressure situations and in situations where you're literally just holding shield or just random shield to bait stuff out, it's very easy to have like a Street Fighter X flow chart. What do I do if I see this? And the thing I've noticed against Foxes and Falcos after a certain level is that if you do the same thing more than once or twice, it's just not going to work, right? Because they're too fluid. It's not like in certain games there's only a couple of options you can do, right? You can either like roll away or whatever after. But because Fox's and Falco's shield pressure are so fluid, they can mix up Shine Grab, they can mix up Nair Shine Nair. So basically every out of shield option you do is always a read, and it's always a test of your execution against theirs. Is your Nair out of shield gonna be faster than their instant aerial after Shine at this many after this many reps, right? Because it's hard. You can't carry random shield pressure forever. There's no such thing as any player who's gotten completely random shield pressure that high, because to get that clean, you need to have it in your muscle memory. And you can't adapt your muscle memory. You can like memorize patterns for your fingers, I think, as Fox and Falco, but you can't have like infinite variations. And that like whenever I'm holding shield against Fox or Falco, like patterns always emerge. And that's the moment when you want to pull the trigger.
It's sort of like, as a Falco player, it's like, people joke about how easy it is to like dare shine. Like that's like a string that you could sort of repeat ad infinitum, but like
it's not safe.
It kind of loses to shield grab.
Yeah, it does, and like everyone has a rhythm for shield for dare shining, right? Like that's why doing like one cycle of it is pretty good, but like beyond the first cycle, it becomes pretty obvious when you're like what part of the shield you're attacking or when you're shining. So I think pretty much how Spacey's shield pressure works is that like the first hit is going to be something that you intend to do, and then both players are sort of blind and they're trying to like second guess what the offensive and defensive options are going to be.
So on that note, this is actually something that came up when I played Mafia yesterday. That I was so Peach shield pressure is amazing. I think everyone knows this who's ever faced a Peach. That
it's okay. It's like, but it's not that good because like Spacey's a multi-shine and Peach has. If Peach does FC fair, if you guess wrong, you still get punished unless you dash away, and then that's like the most boring pressure of all time. Whereas Fox does late Nair multi-shine, that beats everything.
But it's also impossible, and then when you mess up, you die because you're Fox.
Yeah, so Peaches is okay.
I think
Fox and Falcos are good.
I think Peach has really respectable shield pressure. Like third best in the game, possibly. Yeah, I would say third best in the game easily.
Anything that makes roll the most appealing option, I think, is good shield pressure. That's my bar for good shield pressure, and I think only 3 characters have that. That are consistently that make roll look like the most attractive option a lot of the time. Something
like 3.5. I would say Falcons is pretty good too, but it's like Falcons is leakier.
Yeah, Falcons is still good. So anyways, what I was thinking about was usually when I get a lock on certain on a character's shield habits or shield pressure habits, I can do that for the rest of the game, or at least the rest of the next couple stocks, and do the same thing, and then not get punished for it, right? Like, if I see that they're Nair Shine Nair adding a certain spacing, or doing something that's slightly unsafe at a certain spacing, I can expect it to come up in a similar situation relatively quickly. But when I was playing Mafia yesterday, I got wrecked because I was expecting that. And in particular, I was noticing that he was doing a fair double jab, and he did that to me once, and I didn't punish it. And he did it to me another time, and I punished it, because double jab isn't safe, and I was looking for it. And then I looked for it for the next 3 times, and I got beaten every single time I looked for it, and he just didn't do it anymore, and I lost that interaction every time. And so I was thinking about that, and it's like, when you play rock, paper, scissors, how quickly should you adapt when you respect your opponent? Like, when you have an opponent as dangerous and as good as the metagame as, like, Mafia clearly is, at rock, paper, scissors, how do you stay one step ahead? How do you read when they're going to switch their pattern? Because at a certain level, this doesn't really matter, right? Like, certain players only have a couple of sequences that they can do for shield pressure, and you can just beat that every time. And once you figure that out, they lose the game. But once people figure out how to adapt immediately, how do you stay ahead?
Well, then if they're adapting immediately, and they respect that you're adapting immediately, that's when you get to do the same option 4 times in a row, and it stops being dumb and being genius.
Right.
But you have to be good at doing that, but not getting cocky at that, because then you do it every time because you think you're cool, and then they're thinking on the level where they know you think you're cool. So that's just bad. So
my brain.
Well, so just be cool, but don't let them know that you think you're cool.
Yeah,
and that's how you win the mix-ups.
I think it's important to be. I think it's important to like let people know that you're not afraid, but to stick to the options you've chosen without being stubbornly attached to them. Does that make sense? Like,
So
yeah. So let's say like in Howard's example of like Peach double jab. So that's first of all just like that's kind of fraudulent. Like one jab is sort of like defensible, but double jab as Peach is pretty fucking fraudulent.
it's like pretty good because
It's okay, but you're not going to get too much off of it, and it's predicated
it's still
on
a
the
good
fact
option
that
some of the time.
yeah, it's reasonable, like only because people are so afraid of holding down. So, like down in that case is like rock, right? Like it's the option that everyone's afraid of and that everyone's thinking, like everyone's thinking about in the back of their mind. So, I think in that situation, and Ryobeat agreed with me a lot, you should hold down some of the time, like maybe even more of the time than your opponents like expect, because like holding down gives you an instant punish against their jab and turns their shield pressure into your situation.
So this is something I actually want to talk about a little bit, is that what you're talking about now is all completely correct and probably the optimal way to punish it that no one does. But what I'm thinking about is that assuming the players already know this, assuming the players already know, quote unquote, the optimal punish for it, how do you stay ahead of them? Right? Like, what do you assume your opponent knows and doesn't know? I think this is something that we definitely talk a lot about, how you punish things on the show quite a bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you do in this situation? How do you beat that? But I think something that we don't, and people at general don't think about enough, is how do you make sure you beat the option that your opponent wants to do?
Intuition is really important.
Just know. You just gotta know in your heart, I guess.
You gotta play a lot because people are super predictable and all the same. So you just play someone, you put them in like one of the 4 people categories that exist in Melee, because there's only like no one's really unique. There's only really like 4 basic categories, maybe more, maybe less. But
what are they? The fighter, the runner, the tech god.
No, it's just like the tech emplacer, the tech lefter, the guy who always double jumps, the guy who thinks they're going to double jump but messes up the tech input. Like, I don't know.
Wait, there's gotta be. Wait, we've got. This is like a tarot set of tarot cards for like Melee players, right? Like the double jumper.
Yeah, like, I don't know. You just pay attention to their habits, and as you play people more, you know how people think when they realize you figured out their habits, and then you get into that. So, and if someone's always as smart as you, it's always just going to be like a 50-50 matchup. So you should just play more so you're smarter than everyone, and that's really your best option.
It's sort of like a cop-out answer, but like honestly, intuition is what matters the most in like high pressure situations, because you just straight up don't have enough time to think, and if you feel like something is like the right thing to do, just go with it. And it's important to YOLO and to like actually not be afraid of losing sometimes. Like if you're sometimes like you'll just have those games where like you'll only lose to one particular thing, and both players sort of know that. If you're at Peach, if you're fighting Peach and she's like at 100% and you're at like 20%, the only way you lose is if you just take 4 or 5 hits of a down smash and parity is achieved again. So some emphasis should be placed on avoiding that situation, but once like it's established by both players that they know that you're actively avoiding that, then you're just like depriving yourself of options. Like once in a while you should like just not be afraid and like just to choose. So the best thing to do is to like choose options semi-randomly, but to like not regret your choices. So I'm a huge like proponent of the idea that you can make a mistake, you can make the correct decision, but be punished for it. Like you can get a bad outcome from a good decision, and if you believe like, truly in your heart of hearts, like in that one split second, that holding down against double jab against Peach was going to be the right thing to do, that's something you have to like represent once in a while and not be like afraid of. Lizard Brain's going to tell you to like just roll away or like to like near out a shield, do something like really defensive. But I think one of the things that makes you a really strong player is like being able to master your emotions and your fears, and to put things out that like seem kind of crazy. That's something that Mango is exceptional at.
So there's a concept in poker called optimal play, right? And this is something that Tian, I think you would be very good at, is trying to play optimally in poker, where you try and balance your hand range. So you play this kind of hand this percent of the time, and another kind of hand another percent of the time, and balance your ranges, it's called, where you pick lines based on the percentage that's optimally correct by math. And that is definitely one way to play, and it's a very winning way to play. But I think that, and I think that a lot of Melee players very much do that. I think Leffen is a quote-unquote frequency player. Like he picks this option at X% of the time. And I think that's definitely one way to success. But something that I think that most of our New England top players do is the complete opposite attack, where they try and figure out what their opponent is doing all the time and just beat that option. Just 100% do this super YOLO, theoretically unsound option that they just believe in their heart of hearts will work over and over and over.
Yeah. So
down smash.
Yes,
it's so interesting because like New England for the longest time I think was defined as like a really campy defensive region, so where like the best players were just like known for being like really good crouch counselors and really good like defensive punishers. Like Zoso was like pretty much the definition of New England for a long time.
Yeah, frequency player.
Yeah, but I think if you look at like recent trends in New England, I think a lot of the players who are like rising really quickly are players who figure out other people, their opponents like really quickly and actually represent like highly offensive play styles. So Slox I think is like definitely a super aggressive player, but it's done in a really smart way. And so is Claps. I would say so is Crush, so is Mafia. Matt.Zev sports that kind of spirit as well. And it's sort of because like it's so hard to play defense consistently, and your bag of deep tricks has to be like extraordinarily deep. You have to be like as good as like Mewtwo King sometimes to play good defense, because it's like when you're playing offense, like you can get people scared and you can just register what kind of tendencies people have and just really capitalize off of that. So it's kind of interesting that New England's actually becoming a really like offensively driven region, despite the fact that we're known for like Jigglypuff, Marth, and like Ice Climbers play.
Well, our floaties are aggressive too.
I
Yeah,
think
it's
we still
true.
play pretty defensive compared to like every other region I've played in. Like people love to say we go for hard reads, but even like Matt, he's just like dancing around shooting lasers, and then he does forward smashes. He does them far away so they're safe, and then you try and punish it, and then you get forward smashed again. And like this is like definition can't be safe play. Whereas like real aggressive players, they forward smash your shield and they don't care. And people in New England, they just don't do that.
So one player that hasn't been mentioned yet that I think is the paragon, this champion of this play style in New England is Arl. And so I don't know if you guys know too much about Arl's practice habits, but he doesn't. Right?
I play with him like once a week.
You play with him like once a week, but he doesn't go home. Like he watches videos from time to time, but he's pretty busy, right? Like he's in med school. He's
like Tien.
Yeah, he has a ton of things going on in his life. And while he thinks about Melee really well, he doesn't usually, like when I watch him play, he doesn't do the textbook correct thing, right? Arl is not a textbook Peach. He doesn't do the quote unquote right thing to do, but he does the thing that's beating his opponent, right? He does the thing that his opponent doesn't want to get hit by, and then gets hit by, and that they get hit by over and over. He doesn't go for this theoretically optimally. This action I'm going to do this a percentage of the time. He says, oh, he's just going to go there, and I'm going to hit him there with this every time. And you know what? It works, right? Like he beat. Oh, that's one thing. He beat Captain Face Roll, the king of the documentary children. He went to his town and took his money, so that was great.
Yeah.
And I think that him in particular embodies that playstyle where they just want to see what you're doing and beat that, and they don't care what the right thing to do is there or whatever. They just want to beat you at that particular instant. And
I think Arl's like pretty intuition driven, to be honest. Like
absolutely,
intuition's like really valuable. Like that's what I mean by like saying like choosing an option and not really regretting it. And fortunately for Peach, like a lot of her like strong options are so good that it doesn't really leave her the space for regret unless you're playing against like absurdly high level players who just like make you regret hitting hitting shields with down smashes. But Peach is like definitely a character that like if you just do a strong string, it'll just work X% of the time and people will be terrified by it. So yeah, like I definitely encourage like I don't think YOLO options are good, but like having some like unpredictability in your playstyle is hugely important. And that was like one of the things that Claps had told me about, where he thought that I was too much of an optimal player, where because I was so like indoctrinated with the idea that crouch cancel forward tilt was good against Captain Falcon, that became like overwhelmingly common in my playstyle against him. And when I mixed it up more, he was just like, I just don't know, like really what you're going to do, and that's important. Like know what your characters are good at and know what they're bad at, but don't don't pigeonhole them into just like, into like one strategy or one set of like options. That's foolish.
So I've talked to Mr. Lemon about learning how to play Doc from videos, and he says that he can't watch Shroom to learn anything, right?
Yeah.
Because Shroom never does the right thing. But he's a top 10 player in the world, right? He got 10th on the Melee MIOM rankings, and I think that place is well deserved. And he never does the right thing.
That's so weird because nobody watches Shroom for Doc videos, and no Sheiks really watch Shroom for Sheik videos either. It's weird. He's
just amazing.
How do you learn from that? He's just so what you learn from Shroom is know what your opponent is doing and beat that. Like, can you teach that?
Anyone can watch Shroomed and learn. It's like not even character-specific stuff. It's just being amazing.
He just gets it, right?
His inputs are good, and I feel like he has like his intuition. I think is what really carries him. Like he's not even good at like at reaction tech chasing. Like
he doesn't.
Yeah. Like he guesses a lot of the time, and like you can just like hear Drug Fox like just puking in the audience. Like, oh my god, I can't believe you went for that.
I bet he would beat Drug Fox though.
I think so too. I mean, Drug Fox got what?
He has better results consistently than Drug Fox, and Drug Fox is sort of like the 20 like he's the 20 GX Sheik player pretty much. So that's very telling, and like knowing what is strong is useful, and like having mastery of what makes your character strong is important. But your character like is a fluid extension of your will, and not necessarily just like a Falcon tech chase bot or like a wobble bot. Like you have to really think about like your character as as the sum of their parts.
As a person that gets a wobble.
So I think that Shroomed is just randomly guessing tech chasing all the time. Like that's just his playstyle. Like he just doesn't react to anything. He reacts to some stuff, obviously.
No, well, there's some things that are like obvious to react to, but his positioning for reaction tech chasing is like sometimes you can just tell it's off, but he'll just like sometimes corral you into like teching to one side to like dash attack you or something, and it works like more often than for a lot of players.
Yeah, so I don't know how you teach that.
Or MacT, right? MacT is like another example, like where you can watch his videos and you don't really understand what he's doing better than other Peaches, but he gets like absurdly better results than any other Peach except for Armada.
That's what he does better. He's very good at putting people on tilt by reading their options with down smash, and that is a very important skill.
I suppose that's true.
That's definitely not the only thing he's good at, but
also like if you watch him play, he does a lot of really good optimal stuff, especially recently. Like maybe in like 2012, all he did was down smash, but he's like a mini Armada that down smashes like twice as often. But Armada doesn't down smash that much, so he down smashes like an amount that's fine. It's not that bad.
Do you think it's that much of an exaggeration to say that like the best players in Melee at the moment are like a lot of the best players in Melee are obscenely good at rock paper scissors?
Absolutely.
Like, I feel like that's true for some players, but I think it's true for Mutaking. I think it's true for Armada. I think it's true for Leffen.
I don't think Mutaking is that good at rock paper scissors. I think he just grabs. I think he just shield grabs every time, and then sometimes it lands and they die. I think that's Mutaking's style. I think Mutaking always throws rock, and the one time rock works, you lose a stock, right? Like I think that's Mutaking. I think everyone else.
I think Mutaking throws out like, I think he throws out rock 45% of the time. He throws out scissors 45% of the time, and he just like randomly YOLOs you with like paper 10% of the time. So it's a funky mix where he just plays like absolute turtle defense a lot of the time, and also like ledge camps you like a lot of the time. But sometimes he'll just go like balls to the walls, like efficient aggro against you. So he's weird. But I think Dr. PB isn't like necessarily like an RPS player.
I completely disagree, actually.
You think he's a really good RPS player?
Yeah.
He's really good at weighted RPS, because he like forces you into a pressure situation, but it's still mix-ups, right? Because he's always lasering or dash dancing, so he makes you scared. And
I was thinking about his Marth.
But
I think even his Marth. There's a famous story, or not famous, I guess, unless you've heard it already, that he was playing Zoso at the Big House, right? And Zoso took the first game, right? And this is because Zoso is really freaking good at playing the frequency game, and his frequencies were just better than PP's for that. And then the next 9 games in a row, I think Zoso got wrecked, like completely destroyed. And it's
Yeah.
just because PP was playing RPS. You don't see it. That's the thing about PP that makes him so good. You
Mhm.
don't see when he's reading you necessarily, but
I
he
see.
always is. And that's the like PP is insanely like he's a psychology guy, right? Like I think he got a degree in psychology,
Mhm.
and it shows in his play. Like he's always thinking about what you're doing and putting you in a terrible spot. Like he doesn't go for the YOLO. Oh, I'm gonna charge up smash and forward smash here. Like he's more subtle than that. But I
Yeah.
think he's reading you just as often as Mango is.
Okay. Because I mean, it's so tempting, like especially in the high pressure situations we talk about a lot. Like it's so tempting just to, like throw out like your one fallback option. Sometimes like for Fox it's just like doing like the stupid like like full length dash nairs and stuff, right? Yeah, like the dash dance nairs. Sometimes for Captain Falcon it's like YOLO knee or something, right? But if you have mastery over your over Lizard Brain, like you don't necessarily have to like just you know succumb to situations that just make Melee look like spaghetti. And that's really, really hard to do. I mean, like that's not something that's like easily trainable. But to be able to like to resist like what your body wants you to do sometimes is insane, but it's often necessary. Arguably so, I would say.
So I think one of the most valuable pieces of information you can get in Melee when playing someone is finding their level 0, so to speak.
Mhm.
Is finding what they do when all the chips are on the table and they're like, oh my god, like gun against my head. What do? You can't think, and you just act.
That's like when we were talking about like
Here's the test.
flexors or the
Yeah.
double jumpers. That's your level 0.
What is
We
Matt
can space
Outside's
on
level
that.
0, for example?
It's forward smash you or down tilt you or whatever.
Or just attack you.
Attack you, right?
Just
And-
attack you as solidly as he knows how. I think that's his level
It's
0.
probably like tech in place or run off stage.
Or retreating bear, right? Right. And like Tien's is like, I don't know what Tien's is actually.
I think wave dash
This
back
is
forward
wave
tilt.
Wave dash
on
back forward
platform.
tilt. That's
That's pretty
exactly
common.
right. And mine is probably Nair at a shield or down smash to try to hit you, right?
Yeah.
And
But,
everyone
like-
has their level 0, and I think that defines everything. Builds off that, right? You don't see an opponent's level like level 0 when you first play them. It only comes out towards the end of a set or like in the middle of a game when things are incredibly heated. Like when people have their learned concepts of neutral game and their intellectual play styles occasionally, but then when when everything is said and done, what you do is who you are, and I think you can kind of build like a house around that and see what they're going to do after that.
Absolutely. So it sort of defeats the purpose of like your individuality to like purposefully put yourself out of your comfort zone. But it's important to recognize that not all the decisions you intuitively make are going to be the correct ones, and you really need to be like incredibly critical of the times when things don't work out for you to form a better idea of like what your level 0 should be. I mean that's how Smash is like philosophy. Like you'll fall back onto arguments that you feel like work, but when they don't work, that should be like really intriguing to you. Like, why didn't this work? What can I learn from this situation? How do I need to adapt to like now that my best options aren't working?
So I think one of the hardest things in Melee is when their sort of base actions counter your base actions. So you're always trying to go against the grain. And that's why you see the players that are considered quote-unquote better than other players lose to them time and time again.
Mhm.
And that's so hard to overcome, to fight your instincts, so to speak. And that's
Yeah.
what the best players have better than everyone else.
Oh man.
It's easier when your level 0 is just read them. I think a lot of the top players, I think Shroomed is the #1 example in my head, where what you do is just figure out what your opponent is doing and beat him. I think that's like his go-to action, right? That's why he doesn't choke. I think that at like when he's at the choke situation where other players are like panicking, he's like, I'm going to see what he's doing and beat them. And I think that's super rare, and I think that some players have that.
Yeah. So did you guys read like the Armada article that was like posted on MIOM's website? That was
That's
so
where he
good.
says he like rolled into Mango's rest on purpose to make him play bad.
Yeah. So I learned so much about like the way Armada. I think I learned a lot about the way
He's
some
a
of the ways he
ruthless
operates.
killer.
Yeah.
That's what
So
I learned.
one of the things that really stuck out to me was his approach to matchups. Like in the sense that he intuited that Jigglypuff Peach was going to be really difficult because that matchup gets cornered into a set of interactions that are generally very hard for Peach to win. Howard, you've been talking about that a lot on the show before.
It's RPS, but Peach doesn't have rock. Is the way Theo described it to me, and I completely agree.
Yeah, so Armada also establishes like if this is like Armada like discussing his observations about like Mango and HBox, I think they're pretty valid. Like he thinks that that's like like the things that Peach has going for her in that matchup are hard for her to win at. And recognizing that, he decided to like choose Young Link, who is definitely like, I remember seeing that like in 2011, 2012. That was definitely a dark horse. Nobody really expected that. And like there's like stories about like HBox picking up Nest to counter his Young Link and crazy stuff like that. But his approach to choosing Young Link was excellent, because he said that instead of just being results oriented and just thinking ultimately about results and just basing your evaluations of good and bad on results, just think about what actually is rather than thinking about what other people tell you, right? That's extraordinarily insightful. Like if someone tells you Young Link is bad, don't just like accept that and just like be like, oh yeah, Young Link's bad, like he can't really do anything out of shield, his short is stubby, he gets gimped more than Link does. You can actually think, what actually in this different matchup, Young Link Jigglypuff, makes it so that Young Link might have like an advantage, or what kind of situations does Young Link get out of that Peach can't really get out of. And that was just so illuminating. And like the fact that he brought out Young Link and that he's bringing him out for like against Jigglypuff's tech for like the last 3 years, it's really just like a testament to like Armada's self-confidence and his ability to like reason things out for himself and not just accept things as like true from what other people tell him. And he talks to Mewtwo all the time, right? Like Mewtwo is like sort of the exact opposite, where he'll just like set like a just an unchanging view, and then like that'll just be the way he thinks for like the next like month or so. I think Armada's like super open-minded, and that's one of the reasons why his Young Link counterpick was like so legendarily successful.
Theo, what do you think of the Young Link Jigglypuff matchup?
I think it's really, really annoying, but Jigglypuff like barely wins, which is why Armada could win, because he had practice in a stupid low-tier matchup that Hungrybox played once a year.
Get wrecked, HBox.
He got to play it with like tech like every day, so
Yeah.
Armada was like 8 times better at it, and Armada was like making fun of Hungrybox. Armada, if he ever talks about Hungrybox, he like basically calls him a terrible player as politely as possible. He's like, so Hungrybox is really good, but he plays Puff. Or he'll be like, so I was really surprised that it took Hungrybox 2 years to beat my Young Link. So he's like just like all these put downs, but it's like in a really, I don't know, in a way where
it's backhanded.
he's
right?
saying it. It's very backhanded. It might just because like he's Swedish, but I think he knows what he's doing.
I don't think
He knows
Armada
what's
would
going on.
like take out Young Link against Hungrybox in like
because
EVO
Jigglypuff up air
2015.
beats Young Link down air, and like bombs kind of suck if you're good. But Hungrybox wasn't good, but then he got good, so he could beat them.
It's those matches are super illuminating because you can see character players learn on the screen. Like you can watch
play
them.
it so little, right?
Yeah,
It's
you
kinda
can
crazy.
see them what they're thinking in real time, and the better the player is, the faster they learn. That's what blows me away about Armada in particular. And people in that article you're talking about, TN, they were talking about the Genesis 1 run, where Armada would lose the first game, win on his opponent's counter pick, and then win again against opponents like Lucky.
Oh my god.
And like players like that of that caliber, like Shiz, and this is like 2008 or whenever Genesis 1 happened, where that was like unthinkable. And he would get kind of not wrecked, but beaten pretty solidly game 1, and then figure it out. And that's something that I think that certain players have over other players, and certain characters have over other characters. And I think this, more than any other reason, is the reason to practice tech skill.
Yeah.
Besides consistency, it's to free up mind space so that you can think, right? Like, because thinking is such a luxury. Who gets to think in Melee? Like in Fox Dittos or Falco Dittos,
She gets
you
to
don't
think.
have to think.
She gets to think if she gets an edge, and so does Jigglypuff.
Right.
And what like Theo's probably gonna agree with me on this one. If your ledge tech is like really impeccable and well practiced, that just becomes like an extension of your will, and you don't even have to think about the input.
I
You
completely
just do it.
disagree with that. I think
You don't
my
think so?
mental strength would fall apart when I had to concentrate that hard on ledge stalling, because
Okay.
I need the ADD
Wow.
high intensity to stay focused. So that's why
Okay.
Fox works a lot better, because stuff's always happening, so I'm always thinking fast, and I think I'm better at thinking fast than people. But if I
Okay.
have to do very calculated ledge stalling for hours, I'm like, this is impossible. And then
Well-
I just get like YOLO Need by Falcon. I'm like, Falcon sucks. This is dumb.
So you want the game
don't
to
need-
be
you don't need
fast,
hours,
but not
though.
too fast.
So
Well,
like
I can always get faster, right? So
It's true.
I think that's like less human limited than my ability to be smarter than everyone as fast as possible.
Well, here's the thing. When I play Sheik, you don't need like to stall for hours. Sometimes all it takes is like 5 seconds, just a few
That's
iterations.
so long.
Form a game plan. That's like 3 or 4 cycles. That's not too
If you
bad.
can count to 5 seconds like now and be not depressed.
Yeah, no, it's important.
I can't do
So
it. I tried. I couldn't do it. Fuck.
yeah, I mean, yeah, like maybe I value that like in a different way than maybe like Theo or Bonk might value it, but just allowing myself some wiggle room to think and just to like assess what's going on and like think about like how I'm gonna get off the edge and like choose an option to like proceed with. That's super valuable because like if you think and you have like a set line in your mind about like how your opponents are likely going to be reacting to what you do, that gives you a tremendous advantage when your opponents are just thinking about how to get you off the edge. So when your options are when what you choose becomes muscle memory, and when you're really good at like masking what you want to do, you don't even need to like your expression cannot even change. You might not even be able to hear a change in the input, but something will have happened. That's really dangerous. And one last point about this, but I feel like I beat Spider Sense in pools at Evo last year.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk
specifically
about like, beating people
specifically because of that. It was like game 3 last stock. I was at like 80% and he was at 20, and I zeroed to death him off the edge because like I had shown him that like I wasn't afraid of stalling, but that I wasn't gonna go for anything YOLO because it was Evo. I decided to YOLO super hard. So out of nowhere, like I chose like at some point during stalling that I was gonna like attack and just like go into a string, and it was something like a forwarder F tilt dash attack into like a platform setup that just killed Ganondorf, and he was just like, well, like I wasn't prepared for that. I was just thinking about how to get you off the edge, but you were already thinking about like how to attack from that position. So the more like well practiced you are at like those specific situations, the better off you'll be. So I do think that like high pressure situation like stalling and just like giving yourself like time to think and time to form a plan is valuable, but it might be character dependent. Sorry about that like super random tangent there.
There are some players that don't think ever, right?
Yeah.
Not ever, but there are some players whose base game plan, I think Westballs only thinks when he really has to, right? The rest of the time
is against like 4 people in the world.
yeah, and like otherwise he's just doing his. I'm Westballs. I'm so good. I'm shining. Bloop bloop bloop. bloop.
Popcorn.
Yeah, popcorn, circus music, right? And I think that there's players that do that and do really well and don't have to think. But the thing is, if they play players who can match their intensity, who have more training and more practice thinking, and who always try hard and always try and outplay them on the mental game, they get kind of wrecked, right? I think that everyone's seen that case of the super tactical, amazing Fox Falco player. Wow, boom, they're so good. Meets someone who can match them on that intensity and just sees what they're doing and beats it over and over and over. And I think it's like something that you have to think about thinking and always be constantly doing that. And that's why you gotta not ever like to get to that point where you don't think about the bleep bloop.
You have to practice.
Yep.
Yeah. That's all I'm really like. That's all I'm really trying to promote. Like practice your fundamentals, practice the things that like make your characters good, so that when you actually have to like take out what makes them good, there won't be any thought or energy expended in execution. Right. All right. I think that just about wraps things up for this week. Do you guys have any like shoutouts you want to make, or like anything else you want to briefly talk about?
Well, shoutouts to Infinite Numbers because he did amazing. Yesterday.
Yes, Tuesday.
We actually broadcast on Wednesday. Shoutouts to us to do the podcast on time for like the first time in like
the
2
year.
months.
First time of the year.
Let's make this a trend moving forward.
By the way, so the show from now on will be at 9 p.m. This day, Wednesday, every day, once a week.
Every week.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think we have like I talked to a few people in Tri-State who were interested in coming on, so I might have more updates about that.
Get excited.
Coming up. Yeah.
Yes, shoutouts to Tri-State.
Guest height.
Yeah. And one more thing I haven't really talked about too much. On the idea, I'll go into this really briefly, but I thought of it as we were talking about like New England and like how we're improving and how a lot of our top players sort of have like similar lines and similar flavors. I think wide wide levels of experience, or like just really diverse experience is one of the most important things to have as a Melee player. Like it's important not just to be like you know the king of Boston, or to be like the best player like in a small limited environment. I think it would be better to like consistently get second or third at a wide like selection of tournaments than it would be to be like consistently the best within a local metagame. Occasionally you have players like you know Kells, who just like destroys everyone in Chicago consistently, tournament in and tournament out. But that's at least one reason why traveling to nationals and majors is really valuable. So rather than just, you know, like saying, you know, I'm gonna grind out New Game Plus until like I can beat everyone there, I think it's actually really good to like, you know, go out of your way a little bit and travel. Go to like a tournament you haven't actually gone to. Go to like make money off of Melee, or like or a Rhode Island tournament that's like slightly out of the way for you. Just get more exposure against different playstyles. And that's one reason I'm actually going up to Canada next weekend for Smash. McGill's hosting a Smash tournament in Montreal, and I want to play against like Kage and B-Wins. I might not win that tournament. In fact, like the odds are against me that I'll be able to beat either of them. But I just want to see like what the Montreal metagame is like and how it differs from New England. And that's how you gain like recognition and you know notoriety. It's by traveling and like playing people who put you away from your comfort zone. All right, I'm gonna get off my soapbox a little bit there.
All right,
Travel.
thank you everyone for joining us. We'd love to see you all in the chat. We see your request for questions. We'll get to that next time. But that's all
awesome.
the time we have for today. And again, thank you. You all are great. Stay classy, New England.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next week.